We're starting to get the feeling like something's happening here. You know, as the speakers build and the crowd connects, something's really going on. It's such an honor for me to be a part, just a little part of that. 3 years ago, I went to a TED Talk with my daughter, Gabrielle. And as one of the speakers was talking, she leaned into me and said, "Dad, you have to do this." So what you're witnessing is somebody fulfilling a dream. This is a big check on a box of life, a bucket list, if you will. And so thanks for showing up. I'm not sure it would have went so well if you weren't here. So I really appreciate it. I actually come to you today with a question. And the question is, what's your story? What's your story? We all have one. It's what ties us together. Is your story pushing you? Does it drive you? Does it get you up in the morning? Or does your story push snooze? Is your story inspiring to you? Is it inspiring to others? Does it sit inside your chest in a way that you just want to crack it open when people give you the opportunity? Or is your story quiet or sad? Do you hide your story? Do you hold it inside because you don't want to share it with people? So I'm a mental skills trainer at Mount St. Vincent University, and I get one of two very distinct reactions when I tell people that I'm a mental skills trainer. The first reaction is, "What? You're a what?" And the second reaction is my much more favorite, where they go, "Oh yeah, cool, that's really cool." And they have absolutely no idea what it is that I do. I always look for those guys because it's fun. So, to create a level playing field, here's what a mental skills trainer does. I help athletes get ready. I don't help athletes put a ball in a hoop, or kick a ball in a net, or hit a ball over a net, but I help them get ready. We do all sorts of programs with the students to get their psyche in a place where they can perform at their best. We do mental toughness, we do imagery and visualization, goal setting, anxiety management, pre-shot routine, pre-game routine. There's a lot of crying in mental skills training, but it's such an honor for me to get to do because I get to be a part of something. We've got 2 soccer teams, 2 basketball teams, and a volleyball team. I get to be on the bench, and I think I'm the best defense yeller in Atlanta, Canada. Because when I get on a bench with a team, I can't help them do anything else except be a part of it. I've stood 2 feet behind a kid who made a 3-pointer at the line to win a game, and I felt like I belonged to something. It's amazing. At Mount St. Vincent, you get this opportunity to cook like a kitchen. I get to try things and see if they work. If they don't, we throw them away. And if they do, we're going to work those things hard. It's like a lab in a way. Oftentimes, when you do work like this, facilitation work, speaking, coaching, all that stuff, you step in and then you step out and kind of hope, you know? You hope that it went well or that they took something from it. But at Mount St. Vincent, I get to be a part of something and I fall in love with those kids because they're so committed to being better. And it's such an honor to be a part of that. On top of that, and this is where my life has gone completely strange, I have sailors and gymnasts and divers and hockey players. I got a kid in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. I started when he was 14, and now he's 18. He's a man, and I'm so proud of him. He's doing ridiculously well. I have a 12-year-old sailor today, a little boy, and when they asked me to work with a 12-year-old sailor, I just thought, at 12 years old, like, leave the kid alone, right? Like, just let him do what he's doing. Today, he's in Uruguay, sailing on a boat probably no bigger than this desk. And I meet him, and he's so brilliant. And like all the athletes, he wants it, right? He wants the thing that's going to sort of push him into somewhere else so that he can perform. And how did I end up there? It's spectacular. The common denominator with all of the athletes, the only thing that I can connect all of them together in, is that they all have a story. Now, some athletes present with stories that are empowering. My Quebec Major Junior kid, that kid had a story. He was thinking Montreal Canadiens when I met him at 14 years old. Unfortunately, he's rare. What's common is that people have stories about what they can't do. There's walls in the way. There's chains around their shoulder. Things that I'm too tall, I'm too short, I'm too thin, I'm too heavy, I'm a girl. And it breaks my heart as a father of two girls when the next words out of an athlete's mouth when their line is, I'm a girl, isn't, I'm Wonder Woman. So it's my job to mine into their story and try to connect some dots to be able to create the story that's going to allow them to perform. So today, I'm going to tell you, that's my daughter, by the way. I'm going to tell you two stories. Look at the guy in the middle. What is going on with this kid in grade 10? He wore a three-piece suit. There's a pocket watch in his vest. That's me when I was 15 years old. And I'd kill to have that hairline back. But I want to tell you a story about two boys that I grew up with. I grew up in Bedford, Nova Scotia. And it's a middle-class town. I lived in a middle-class neighborhood. I wasn't rich and I wasn't poor. We had no concrete or pavement, so we played ground hockey all year on gravel. We played baseball. There were probably 5 or 6 boys, 2 or 3 girls, and we all knew each other. And there were no doors locked. You know, the community was bringing everybody up. So let me tell you about Gerald. Gerald was born easy. Gerald's parents told him that he could do anything. Gerald's parents told him he could be Billy Graham. Gerald's parents told him he could go to Hollywood. Gerald was the kind of kid who flirted with your mother, and he got away with it. I hear Tyson's that kid here at UNBSJ. In grade 2, now we all went to the same school. In grade 2, Gerald got a tap on the shoulder with Sherry Spence and Melanie Nolan. And they were told that they really should be in grade 3. Gerald's story was getting better. His parents, instead of letting him skip, they sent him to private school. Gerald's story was getting better. He was a strong academic kid. He was the editor of his yearbook in high school. And then he did something that nobody expected. Gerald went to hairdressing school. He told his parents he was going to be a hairdresser. Now, in 1984, when you were a strong academic kid, hairdressing was not necessarily what people thought you were going to do. So as you can imagine, based on how Gerald's story has gone up until now, Gerald didn't become a hairdresser. Gerald became the hairdresser. Gerald won 15 Atlantic Canadian Hairdressing Championships. He went to the Canadian Championships 3 times, and eventually he went to the World Championships in hairdressing. Now, I'm sure none of you know what hairdressing championships are, but here's how it works. Think of Dancing with the Stars. Now just don't dance. It's a strange competitive world that exists within hairdressing, and Gerald was thriving. And it didn't end there. He comes back to Halifax, and the Queen comes to Halifax of England, the Queen of England. And they call him, excuse me, and they say, look, we want you to be prepared just in case she needs any help while she's here with her hair. They took Gerald's passport for 2 weeks, excuse me, and they gave it back to him, figured out he was safe, and armed with hairspray and a comb, I'm not making this up, they paid him an egregious amount of money to be about 15 feet away from her while she was in Halifax. Now, he never touched her. She had this industrial strength umbrella that just nothing moved. But his story kept getting better. And he's not done. Gerald's an athlete. He's run 7 half marathons, 15 full marathons. He's run up a mountain to raise money for the Brain Injury Association. His story keeps getting better, and he can still flirt with your mother. So, let's talk about Adam. All in the same community, with the same parents and the same feeling, right? We're in Bedford and it's the 60s. Adam was born with severe allergies and asthma. And so what that meant is that he was, not that guy, sorry. He was the boy in the bubble. Adam was allergic to everything. Excuse me. So he spent most of the first 4 years of his life at the IWK hospital. They used to put Adam in the bath with socks on, or sometimes his pajamas on, because he had scratched his skin so raw that it was stuck. Adam's life and his story were hard. By the time he got better, which was just before his 5th birthday, he was spending much more time at home than he was in the hospital. But unfortunately, no matter how much his parents tried, he was growing up in an alcoholic home. And for some reason, Adam took it in. It was becoming his story, like an assault. It got inside him. So his parents ripped up the front lawn, took the wallpaper off the walls, and the carpet out of the house in an attempt to help him not be allergic to everything. His story was getting harder. At 15 years old, Adam's parents divorced. Now, today, we co-parent, we decouple, heard that one. We have joint custody, and a lot of people who are divorced have dinner on Sundays with their kids. That wasn't what was going on in 1982. His parents were the first parents any of us knew to divorce. One really tough day, Adam walked into his mother's room and found her near lifeless body. There was a note. She was tired. She couldn't do it anymore. Now, for those of you my age, there's no 911 in 1982. But on your telephone next to it, who remembers the magnets? And it had all the emergency numbers, remember? So in a community like mine, when a fire truck and an ambulance and a police car all show up, you get the sense something is really wrong. Now, luckily for Adam's mother, she turned a corner. It was her worst day, and she went on to do spectacular things. But for some reason, Adam, like the alcoholism and like the hospital stay, he took it inside. It got a little deep. By 17, he was on his own. By 23, he was having a child. And 8 months later, he was a single dad, 3 nights a week with no money. Adam's story was beginning to follow him. By 30, he was married, but by 40, he was getting ready to get divorced and found himself a single dad again. His story continued to follow. So here's the rub in Gerald's story and Adam's story. We both all grew up in the same place, and now we're 50 years old. I was born in 1967. My legal name is Bryan Gerald Fader. When I was in high school, I was so angry at my dad. This seems so silly now. I wanted everybody to call me Adam because it was different. So what I did, I was the editor of the yearbook, so I just inserted it in between my name. Nobody ever called me Adam. But it was some sort of attempt to escape what was going on. You see, the way I connect my story determines who I am and where I go and what I think I can do. Adam would never have the courage to walk into Mount St. Vincent University and say, I want to do a master's degree. And by the way, I don't have an undergrad degree. Is that okay? Adam wouldn't have made the phone call. Gerald took me in, no problem. Adam would never have the courage to call the Daily News and say, I'd like to write a weekly column about what it's like to be a hairdresser. Gerald had no problem taking me on that phone call. And I wrote 143 columns for the Daily News until the day they closed, called Behind the Chair. And it was all about my experience. Because you see, I am a mental skills trainer at Mount St. Vincent University 20 hours a week. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to graduate with a master's degree in adult education. And 40 hours a week, I stand behind a chair and I cut hair. And how I've taken my story and connected it in a way that allows me to get to this place where Adam would have never applied to do a TED Talk, ever. Gerald brought me right here with you. The greatest thing that I've ever heard, and this is going to sound a little strange, is it's my fault. It's my fault. You see, I can hold my fault in my hand. I got myself there. It's my fault. So I can do something about it. I can change, right? If it's your fault, if my life is your fault, it's over. How am I going to ever get you to change? But if it's my fault, now I can get to work. Something can happen. It's a beautiful thing when we accept the responsibility for the fact that you are the director and the producer and the writer of your story. So, two things that are really important. My parents did great, somehow. They took that experience in the 80s and they turned it around. My father is 78, he's still working. He's a remarkable guy and he's been sober for over 15 years. And my mom went on to be, she got a master's degree in social work and became an advocate for people with pain. They turned it around. It's how I connect my story that gets me here. So, let me ask you again. Is your story inspiring? Is your story something you want to share with people? Or is your story quiet and hidden? I'll just ask this. What's your story? I'm Bryan Fader. Thanks very much.